every way of listening is a form of research.
Welcome to a new episode of Flowcast. Today we're going to Rovigo in Italy, a land of rivers and waters, to meet an artist who's had a lifelong relationship with rivers. Hello Francesco, thank you for being here. Do you want to tell us something about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm Francesco. In the morning, I'm a teacher. In the afternoon, usually I'm a musician. And the two identities blend with the fact I'm a father of two. I live in northern Italy, in Rovigo, a small town not so far from Venice. And usually my days are full of music, of young students, both at secondary school and at conservatory, where I teach as a contract teacher. In late evenings, usually I work on these kind of strange things, like small devices. I like to build, to invent and to build and to use both as instruments in my concerts and sonic sculptures or installation.
So you're kind of a musical comic book superhero. If you want to send me some photos and brief description of those instruments that you create, I would be very interested in to know more about it. I can add it to your article.
I will send, of course, because I've used a few of them for my small composition. Because at first, when I listened to the field recording, it sounded very complex. You know, when you listen to water at first on the surface, it's like listening to pink noise, and you have really a wide spectrum of sounds, and it's so difficult to concentrate on one aspect and choose where there is a deep meaning. And so at first I thought about using a sort of a lens by maybe trying to use a granulator to investigate the dimension of time. I've thought a lot about what I could do, and since I was born in a small town on a river, Bassano del Grappa, it stands
along the Brenta,
just near the mountains. And then when I got married, I moved here between two of the main rivers in Italy, Po and Adige. The presence of a river is a sort of constant in my life, and it has a deep link with memory. And there is a device I have invented and created a few years ago that in particular deals with memory. It's called Ziga Loop. The name comes from the name of the director, Ziga Vertov, because at first I created to create a sonification of a couple of movies by this director, and it is a sort of loop station. It is a sort of a broken radio. It is a sort of a memory trick. Okay, more than a loop station, because it should work, but since it's quite complex, sometimes it decides on its own what to do and what to play, what sound.
Kind of unpredictable.
Yeah, there's an aleatory component that makes the difference when you're dealing with samples, for example. And so the sound of the river, to me, even if on the surface can sound quite strange and too complex to be understood, to me it is something that has to do with memory and with my past listenings and images. And so that's how figures, that is the composition I've elaborated, it takes its form. I went back to some old field recording. I've taken a tome because the presence of a river and the presence of water to me means at first going back to my old memories. And so there are some flies, some birds, some voices, and so on. And then the idea of going back also suggested me to go back to the sample of the first sector of the river I love that it deals with an interval of fifth, with a sort of a silky synth, and at a certain point it appears on the composition. I've tried to do something strange with the composition, since there is a sort of a delayed presentation of the main character. Okay, my ambition is that listening to the composition, you can perceive the water, even if the field recording at first is not present. And when suddenly, after a couple of minutes, the water appears, I hope that by listening to it, you understand that the main character was missing, but its presence was so strong and so disruptive and so important for all the figures you have listened to so far.
You mentioned memory as something very important. It's your personal memory. It's the memory of the Ziga loop that remembers unreliably what you feed into it. And also reading in your description that accompany your piece, which can be read on our Substack page, you also mentioned some folklore of the area, which is tied to the water. So, one of the core concepts of this project was the relationship between the river and us as a society, our civilization. I like the fact that you didn't tackle it just from the ecological or ethical perspective, but also from the anthropological one. Did all this play a part in your composition?
Well, I have to say I love the title of the project, Flow, because I've been thinking a lot about it, and a river, it flows. When water begins to flow, it becomes somehow a river. Could be wherever it could happen. If water flows, it becomes a river. And so there is a strict connection with tradition, with transmission, with culture, in my opinion, because even culture is something that continues to flow. It's something always changing. And also on the ecological aspect, we have to deal with something that is too complex to be labeled as good or not good. It is what it is. At first, you have to listen to it without an idea, without a previous opinion, and then you can evaluate if you can improve it somehow. But the fact there is many anthropic elements doesn't mean it is something bad. It is something really complex that asks to be listened to. Okay, what we have to do is not imagine at first what can be improved, but what we miss today, I think, is the time and the attention to listen to the things that surround us. And then we can consider if we can control it. Somehow listening could appear something a bit naive, but it is more than applied research when you deal with this kind of complex landscapes, because it has to do with political aspects, ecological aspects, global, human, non-human, natural, alien, imaginary, dreamy, and whatever, what else. And the matter is, at first, try to listen to it, and try to listen to yourself and to your background, to your memories, and then try to deal with all these elements and see if something is possible, if something better could be done, with the awareness that you have to deal with what you have in front of you.
Yeah.
Okay. Hydropower is not something I love so much as a concept, but I have to deal with. And we are connected here on our pieces, thanks maybe also to that sector of Lech. I think that listening is a higher level of ecological consciousness.
And listening nowadays can be considered almost a revolutionary action, because it requires time and attention, which is two things that seem to be quite scarce. we spoke about two main concepts driving this project. One is this duality that we just discussed, and the other one is the connectivity of the river, how the entire river is connected from its starting point to wherever it ends, and how it is connected with everything else around it. So during the process of this project, it came out spontaneously to start the Connected Sounds initiative, which is sharing snippets of sounds or using other sounds. I know that you did something like that with Sergio, who was working on the same segment as you, right?
We have been talking about the sound and the project a lot since Sergio is a friend of mine, and we choose two very different paths and two different approaches to the sound and how to process and how to read that sector of the river. And in the final stage of composition, we choose to share and to take a small snippet of audio from each other. And what I've taken from his composition is a female voice, a very processed female voice that, in my imagination, recalls the idea of Anguana, who are these female creatures that are very well known in this area, but also I think all over the Alps. And these are they are the creators of water. And so this kind of connection gave the opportunity of getting in touch with another figure, with another idea, with another view over the river. And so at first you have to listen to, and every way of listening is a form of research. My perspective is subjective. Every researcher has a different attitude towards the river and its sounds. Just the idea of sharing not knowledge but attitudes towards knowledge and towards concepts and sound makes this project so valuable, in my opinion, because we have the opportunity to get in touch with other attitudes, with other sensitiveness. And what does it mean to be a musician today? Or what does it mean to be being a sound artist today? I think that what makes the difference is the opportunity of stopping, sitting, and having the time and the attention for listening carefully. This is what makes the difference.
Now let's listen to Francesco Ganassin's composition, Figures.